Hi everyone, my name is Stan. Welcome to A Russian Opinion. Today we have Eddie. Eddie moved to Russia. He is from the US. In the States, he was a police officer. And today he's going to tell us why he moved to Russia, his opinion on things. So Eddie, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me, Stan. Pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I met my beautiful Russian wife back in 2017 on Facebook, of all places. I was still working in law enforcement. I've since retired. And I moved here permanently in 2023. We're now married, happily, and just enjoying Moscow.
So you moved here in 2023. That was what, like a year and a little bit after the SMO began?
Actually, it was about a year and a few months into the SMO, but if I could back up a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
So my first trip to Moscow was in 2018. Summer of 2018, they had just had the World Cup in June. I came in August. I was here for 12 days. And I will tell you that on day 2, I became radicalized. And what I mean about that is I saw Moscow and I got introduced not only to the city, but to Russia, to Russians, to the culture, to the people, to the wonderful architecture that you see behind me now, and what's behind you right now at the moment, Stan, was totally amazing. Clean streets. The people were very amicable, friendly, and the first thing that I did not notice was petty theft on the streets. I just didn't see it. Second thing I didn't see was drug addicts, drunken Russians, as propaganda is always telling us that all you're going to see is street crime, mafiosos, things like that. Didn't see any of that. And I went back to Texas and I was completely radicalized because it was like Russia is the total opposite of what we are told in the West. And then the second thing, or the second point is, why can't we have this in America?
That's a very good question. Why do you think because the interesting part is you came from Texas, and Texas is, at least in my mind, is the kind of state where, you know, if you come on my property, if you do anything to me, you're gonna get hurt in an American kind of way. And I expect crime and petty theft and to be very low, and cleanliness of the streets in general to be much higher than in a liberal city like New York or Chicago. But this is my opinion. I could be wrong. Why is it that recently, in my opinion, maybe in your opinion, this kind of cleanliness has been difficult to find in the States?
Well, in particular, Texas, it is a large state, but majority of the state is not in a big city. It's rural America, rural Texas. And in the smaller cities, for instance, my hometown of Raymondville is 10,000 people. I was born and raised in a small town, so I come to Moscow, a city of 18 million people. It's just huge, just totally different. But it doesn't really feel that way. But in Texas has traditionally been a very conservative state. God, family, country. And actually, Texas before country.
Yeah, that's true. Texas before country.
Texas before country. The small cities, you will find cleanliness, but you do have the same problems in a small city that you have in a large city. You've got the petty thefts, you've got burglaries, you've got drug abuse, you've got alcohol abuse. So all of the crime that you have in a big city, you do have in a small city, just proportionately less.
We do have this crime here. We do have alcoholism as well. It's visible, maybe not as much, but really, how come, a lot of Americans are noticing this, that are here anyway, or that have visited, how come we have so much less of it, at least on the surface?
You know, that's a very good question. I think a lot has to do with just, there's a lot of pride among Russians. Pride in their country, pride in who they are as a people, as a society, and the fact that this is basically what everybody wants. Everybody wants clean streets. Everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants an economy that is thriving so that they can live their lives. So this is not something particular to Russia. This is something that resonates with every human. I don't care what country you're from. You all want the same things. We all do. Except that here, it's expected. It's expected. So each Russian, I see people go out of their way looking for a trash can to throw things away. Yes, you do see some trash, things. Let's be realistic. People are people. But for the most part, you see that. And that comes from pride, from self-respect, respect for their fellow citizen, and respect for others and the environment. And so this is something that, in my opinion, has been lost in America. There's a big Make America Great Again movement in America. Now, the key word in MAGA is again, because this presupposes that America is not great. It's an acknowledgement that we have failed ourselves. And there's many reasons for that. I'm not a sociologist, so I can't sit here and say, well, it's because of this, that, or the other. But America has, from its founding, struggled with an identity. Who are we as Americans? Who are we as a people? Whereas here in Russia, Russians know their history. And this is something that is very important. You need to know where you come from. You need to know what happened in the past to understand who you are today and who you want to be tomorrow. And this is something that as Americans, we just don't teach that anymore. We don't teach history. We don't even teach American history, much less world history.
Not only do you, at least when I was studying there, I did learn about a variety of different times in American history and European history, whatever. But you also had this period where you tried to, at least the liberals and the Democrats in the States, tried to erase your history by removing statues, by banning literature and books, by making sure that those with love for their country are not heard, are shunned, and are censored, basically. I mean, why is it that, not just America, Europe as well, why is it that this movement has had such a big impact on the States and basically made people like you think the way you think?
There's a very strong liberal agenda in the States. And this agenda, we can discuss and argue where it comes from, but that really doesn't matter. The fact is that it exists. And this liberal agenda is anti-family, it's anti-God, it's anti-order, it's pro-chaos, and just it wants a disintegration of the family. And so there is a concerted effort to promulgate this through media, through movies, through books, if you look at just the movies that come out of Hollywood, they have a recipe. You have to have at least a gay scene. You have to have an interracial couple. You have to have either profanity or something that degrades just human decency. And they want to normalize that. And in my opinion, it has been normalized. And so when you don't have that moral compass, when I don't have the exact numbers of how many people no longer go to church. You lose that moral compass. And so, and then of course, America, you're free. You have freedom. Do whatever you want. That has been taken to an extreme as well. And it's just destroyed the fabric of the family and religion and just morality in general.
I've noticed that many different American, European bloggers, it's like a trend nowadays, is to be in a city in Russia somewhere and to walk around with a camera and say, you know, am I safe? Is it safe? Why is it so safe? Et cetera, et cetera. Why is it that, in your opinion, Americans and Europeans are so utterly astonished by safety here in our cities, yet at the same time Western propaganda says that we're one of the most unsafe countries on the planet?
Well, the thing is, you don't know what you don't have until you see somebody that has it. So you don't realize that you're not safe in America because, for instance, in Texas, everybody's carrying a concealed weapon. Why are they carrying a concealed weapon? Well, there's several reasons for that. One is you have many people that are staunch and pro Second Amendment. They want to carry. But for the majority of people, it's for safety. So the question is, why do you feel unsafe? You feel unsafe because you never know when someone's going to come behind you and attack you, whether they're on drugs, whether they're having mental issues, or whatever that reason could be. You feel unsafe. That's why America is so pro Second Amendment. It's because they feel unsafe.
Sorry, we got rudely interrupted by a Charger driver who's driving around thinking he's very cool.
Now, you probably got that on your camera.
Yeah.
That is a Dodge Charger, folks. An American car with a V8 in it in Moscow, Russia. Talk about sanctions. We'll talk about that in a little bit, I'm sure.
Except I think that's the V6 version. I don't think that doesn't sound like a V8
it
to
could
me.
be a V6.
Yeah, but
still, it's
exactly.
a Dodge. So you don't know what you don't know until you experience the opposite of it. So that's one thing. The other thing is that feeling of the feeling of being unsafe in America is normal. Part of that radicalization that I talked about and mentioned earlier is when I went back to Texas and I realized I don't feel safe here. I felt more safe in Moscow, the place where my government says I should not travel, I should not go, because there's the possibility of just random arrest or harassment from the police, that it's unsafe because mafia and people think it's the 90s. All of that is total BS. It's BS. And you don't know that until you actually come here. Now, that's a big sell for some people in America. This is one of the reasons I tell people, I'd love for every American, if you want to travel to Europe, skip Europe, come to Moscow. This is where you'll find more history, more culture, more safety than you will find in Europe. Come to Moscow and visit. Now, that's a hard sell when you've been propagandized since you were a child. Since, in my case, I'm 60 years old. That's the Cold War for me. You just have to come and visit and you will realize how safe you are. So this is one of the reasons the bloggers are always asking people, is like, hey, do you feel safe here? Well, of course I do. I feel safe at 1 a.m. in the morning walking around Moscow. No big deal. Could I do that in Houston? Could I do that in Austin or Dallas? Absolutely not. There are probably certain places that you cannot go. In fact, there are some American cities where they actually warn tourists, don't go to this neighborhood, or don't go here after certain hours. Don't go here by yourself if you don't know the area. Why, America? Why do you put up with that? Why do you accept that as normal? It just, no. I don't want to live like that. I did a video. It was December of 2023, and I had gone back to Texas to spend the holidays with my family. And I did a day trip to Mexico. And on the way back, I'm crossing, and I start hearing Russian. And what? And I look. There's a whole line of Slavs and some folks from the former CIS countries, all speaking Russian. And I was like, whoa, I just left Moscow 7 days ago. So I asked one in my broken Russian. I said, do you speak English? In my broken Russian. And most of them said, yes, I do. And I found a couple of folks that wanted to talk to me, and I asked them, I said, what are you doing here? Why are you standing on this bridge between Mexico and the United States? And they said, well, we want to leave Putin's Russia. We don't support Putin. We don't support the war. We don't support the SMO. And we want to come to America because we want freedom. And I said, okay, that's very interesting. And they said, why are you in Russia? And I explained my situation to them. And they said, and you want to live there? I said, of course I want to live there. There is another Dodge Challenger. Orange Challenger. How do I like that?
No, it's interesting how there is that. I'm glad that you mentioned this. I'm glad that you mentioned freedom in this case, because one, there's an illusion. I don't believe there's freedom anywhere. I believe there are levels of how much a society is willing to give up to ensure safety and security. In this case, I don't find any country in the world that's absolutely free. However, at the same time, it's interesting that you have people who are going through the Mexican-American border, which is notoriously dangerous, and you have coyotes operating there who are notoriously dangerous. And I'm not talking about the animal, just in case. It's what they call smugglers. And they're willing to do all of that, yet behind you, you have a whole bunch of people, male, female, children, doesn't matter, who are happily walking around, taking photos, taking videos, relaxing, having a good time. I mean, what are they? Are they fakes all employed by the state, especially for this interview, or are they regular people enjoying their life? It's just, it's weird, but I'm glad that you mentioned it. Like, how did those people react when they said, what did they tell you when you said, hey, I wanted to live in Russia, I'm an American?
They were flabbergasted. They couldn't understand how an American would give up freedom to move to Russia. And of course, I started asking them. I said, well, where do you guys want to live? I mean, once you get through immigration, where do you want to go to? One of them said, I want to go to Austin. Another one said, I want to go to Los Angeles. That spoke volumes to me because California is extremely liberal. Austin might as well just be, they just ought to just cede themselves to California. It's a very liberal city. And that gave me an indication of their mindset and how they view Russia at the moment, because they're very, very liberals. I, as an immigrant to Russia, am very happy to know that they left, because they're no longer here. Because everything that is happening in America is not happening here. And
like what, for example? Could you give us some examples of what you mean? Because, I mean, at least the English-speaking subscribers, they'll kind of understand if they live in the States.
Well, many people have the misconception that LGBTQ is outlawed in Russia. It's not. If you want to be gay, be gay. That's your thing. But don't push it on people. Don't try to influence children. Don't teach it in schools. And what you do in the privacy of your own home is your business. But don't try to influence others about that. So, are there gays in Russia? Absolutely. Have I seen some? Absolutely. That's not a problem. But don't try to teach kids to do that. In America, you go to school, and if a teacher realizes or believes that your child is gender confused, they can then try to influence that child that maybe they need to transition from male to female or female to male. I mean, that's not your job. Your job is to educate my child. And it stops there. But in America, there's a big push to do it. Now, of course, with the Trump administration, there seems to be a lot of pushback. And of course, that's where a lot of the friction is happening right now. America's got a lot of problems. And it's just, Stan, I've said this many times in my videos. Modern day Russia reminds me of the America of my youth. Now, my youth was 1970s and 80s, where you could leave your home unlocked, leave the doors unlocked for hours and then come back home. Everything was safe. It was just a safe place. You could walk in a park as a child. No one was going to bother you. And I've told this story before privately. I've never said this on camera, but I'll share this with your viewers now. Several years ago, and I was walking through my neighborhood park in my flat, and I noticed on the playground, there were two little girls playing by themselves. One was maybe about 6, the other little girl maybe about 4. And as I was walking by, they caught my eye, but I noticed that there was no adults around. And I found that peculiar, like, where's mom, where's grandma, where's somebody? But then, as I continued to walk, and I'm looking at other people that are walking, every single person that was walking by that playground had eyes on those two little girls. And I realized nothing is going to happen to those two little girls, because everyone at that point, at that moment, was their guardian, was their little protector. And it's like, wow, that was just an amazing moment for me, because it reminded me when I was a child and I was playing alone at the city park and I'm climbing a tree, and of course I'm being too rambunctious, and this babushka, this Mexican grandma, comes out on the porch and yells at me from across the street, "Hey, get down from there before you hurt yourself." And I was like, "Yes, ma'am." And I got down from the tree because we honored our elders at that time. But that's what we've lost. Now, as an American, I would be afraid to tell a child something for fear that their parent or somebody else is going to reprimand me. It's like, "Hey, what are you doing telling my child this?" Or, "You got a problem, you talk to me about it." Like, "Hey, man, I just don't want them to get run over in the street." So here, it's just normalcy. It's just normal. And everyone is looking out, like I said, for those children that are in that park. And it's just a beautiful feeling, and this is where I want to be.
From our previous conversations, I know that you have this spectrum, yellow zone, red zone, and I guess green zone, right? Green meaning safe, yellow meaning you have to be aware of your surroundings, red meaning you're in danger. I mean, you know this because you're a police officer. This is something that you told me. That's how you operate. In your travels in Russia, have you ever been in a yellow or red zone, not because of the SMO, but because of the local population and how they made you feel, for example?
One time. So, for your viewers, let me just briefly explain what red, yellow, green means. So, in police work,
it's the sounds of filming outside, you know what I mean?
Sounds of Moscow.
Exactly.
Sounds of Moscow. So, red, yellow, green is a state of mind and a state of being. So, most people live in the green zone. You're just lackadaisical, everything is calm, everything is normal. But as a police officer, you can't live in that green zone. You have to be in the yellow zone. So the yellow zone means that you are prepped, you are ready, you are aware, your head's on a swivel, you're looking for situations that need attention. And you need to be able to react at any time. The red zone is, I'm ready to go hands-on with somebody or something's going down. So when I first came to Moscow the first time in 2018, I was still in that yellow zone mentality, because here's the thing, when I'm in Texas, I was on the yellow zone probably 24 hours a day. Just looking out, my surroundings, who's behind me, who's coming around, things like that. I come to Moscow, and my wife now noticed that my head's constantly on a swivel. I'm looking to put my back against the wall. I'm kind of looking around, and she's like, what's going on? And I said, I just want to get the lay of the land, and kind of see. And so she found it peculiar, this behavior of mine. But I was so used to that. Now, I'm green zone, totally green zone, because I simply don't have to be in that yellow zone. That you just have to have a little bit of tension in your body at all times in the States. And you don't realize that you have that tension till you come to a place like this where you don't have to be that way.
So where in Russia did you feel that you were in the yellow zone?
I will tell you, this was Moscow, and it was late at night. It was about midnight, and my fiance at that time, we had come off the metro there at Rechnoy Vokzal, and there was a little bar, and we saw two guys, and actually it was a group of guys. They came out, no lie, full-blown fist fight. I mean, right there. They exchanged words, a couple of blows, boom, boom, boom. One guy goes down. I'm trying to block my fiance. Let's get out of here. But I'm looking back. These guys had a fist fight, little brawl, put one guy on the ground. The guy basically yells at him, "Have you had enough?" And then he goes down, he picks him up, and they go back in the bar. And I was like, wow,
They just had some fun and they go back into the bar.
I hadn't seen a fist fight like that, ever. And that's the only time that I felt like, let's get out of here. Only time. And that was 2018.
So my other question is regarding sanctions, because it seems to be quite obvious that, at least in my opinion, countries in the West are keeping their populations under this blanket of illusion or delusion that the economy of Russia is destroyed. Now, every economy in the world has its major problems, and we have major problems here that the government and the business community are trying to solve. But in my opinion, this is not a destroyed economy. Now, I want to know, in your opinion, has the economy been destroyed, as they say in the West, or are we moving along sometimes even better than countries in the West?
I was actually in Moscow. I had just arrived in Moscow the day before the SMO. So this is February 23rd of 2022. February 24th, SMO begins. February 25th, the entire world goes bonkers. And sanctions hit Russia. And there for a while, there was a lot of uncertainty as to how Russia was going to deal with this. But Russia has overcome, I would say, I can't say, I'm not an economist, but from a consumer and a person who lives here and lives in a Russian economy, they have eliminated many of the barriers that were caused by sanctions. And not only have they overcome those barriers, but their economy is booming. One of the things that I love to show people, especially when they come to Moscow and we start driving, is all of the construction that is happening all around Moscow, actually all around Russia. Construction never ends here. And my question is, where's that investment coming from? I mean, my gosh, if you're a country, one of the most heavily sanctioned countries in the world, would I want to invest there? No, you know why they're investing? Because there's a future here. So you've got to put things into perspective. No, I can go into any supermarket. I can still find Coca-Cola. It's made either bottled in Afghanistan, maybe Georgia.
I don't think it's bottled in Afghanistan.
Yes.
They have Coke there?
Yes, absolutely.
That's
I've bought it.
interesting. Yeah.
I've bought it. Afghanistan, India, Vietnam, okay? You can get anything that you can get in the West, you can get it here.
And I think something that's fueling this illusion or delusion is that at least if this was done to the USSR, then I think there could have been issues because the economy wasn't an economy like in Russia, almost like a free market, plus or minus. It's a capitalist economy, we know that. And because of that, capitalism, there are bad things about it, there are good things about it, but it finds its way to source different products from all over the place. So, I mean, have you found that you're missing some kind of food item? Are we starving? Remember, the Western media said that we're out of potatoes and now it's going to be the end of Russia because all the potatoes are gone?
All the potatoes are gone. Yeah. No. Not at all. You can find everything that you want in the West, you can find it here. I'm a Mexican, man. I gotta have my pinto beans. I had to have my rice, my corn tortillas, my guacamole. I can order guacamole, fresh guacamole, made in Mexico. It's shipped frozen. It's delicious. You know, I can get everything that I want here. And not only that, because I am a techie kind of guy, photographer, I love cameras and things of that nature. Because of the supply chains and the tariffs, so the supply chains that Russia has and the tariffs that the U.S. is now imposing on imports, I can buy camera equipment cheaper in Russia than you guys can in America. When would that
Секунду. Извините, мы
ever
тут
happened?
снимаем интервью, пожалуйста, можете это?
It's all good, man.
So you mentioned you were talking before. It's interesting. It's when you're doing this in public, there are people who are curious, and I guess he wanted to ask you some sort of question. Then his friend was like, "What are you doing?" They're filming. So you were mentioning that you can get a camera equipment for a lot cheaper than in the
Certainly.
States because of the tariffs and stuff like that. It is interesting, but yeah, it's true. In some cases, yeah.
No, absolutely, it is the case.
On the day that we're recording this video, which is the 13th of August, there's a planned meeting between President Putin and President Trump. What are your opinions and feelings on that? What do you think the outcome is going to be? Are we actually moving towards some kind of peaceful resolution, or is it just going to be another meeting? Well, they'll shake hands, exchange a few nice words, and then it's going to be back to normal the next day.
Well, of course, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't predict anything. But there is a feeling of hope. There's a feeling that finally we're getting these two leaders together in the same room to talk face to face. That right there, in my opinion, is just huge. Dialogue is important in diplomacy, and this is a good start. What can come out of it is anybody's guess at this time. But I have a feeling that we're starting to finally move in a direction where things can normalize. At least I'm hoping. So I'm hopefully optimistic. There's also, and it's up to you whether you want to keep this in the video or not, there's also a lot of talk on certain Telegram channels and X channels that the West, the combined West, UK, EU, that faction may be trying to disrupt that meeting by some sort of either an attack or a terrorist attack here on Russian soil or something to that effect. Don't know. I wouldn't put it past them to do that. But I expect this weekend to be very interesting, very interesting.
I hope that they'll manage to get something at least on paper, something resolved, because I think, in my opinion, the whole world seems to be living for the past 5 years even in this like territory of constantly hopeful that finally we're gonna start being a little bit more friendly towards each other and finally start growing together as a world, not just as a particular set of countries inside this world. So I hope something will come out of that.
Yeah,
Now,
so do I.
is there something that you miss about the US that you can't find in Russia? Or something that in general you miss in the States?
My family. Yeah. I miss my family. I wish that we had direct flights from Moscow back to the States. That would simplify and probably lower the airfare of what it costs to go back to the States. But what do I miss about... One of the things I do miss is I don't own a car here. So Moscow has a very sophisticated public transportation system. It's extremely convenient and it's extremely affordable. So there's really no need for me to own a car. But if I wanted to, there's car sharing, you can rent a car, all of that. But what I miss is just getting in a car and going for a road trip somewhere. And but that's just a matter of having a car and getting around. But that's one of the things I miss. But in Moscow, I don't need it.
But that's something that you can experience in most countries in the world. I'm talking about driving around, visiting different areas, being relatively safe. But I mean, is there something that you just can't get here, even if you tried? Any kind of feeling that you miss? Maybe your favorite quesadilla place, I have no idea.
Not really. Well, getting some authentic brisket, and Mexican food, yeah. I just want to point out, I don't know if you've got this camera pointed on this tour bus, but I just want to point out a few things about this tour bus to your audience. And that is, what language is written on that bus?
Well, it's in English.
It's in English. So, where are the English-speaking tourists? We're waiting for you. We're waiting for you.
And speaking of, you actually have a project of your own. So you're helping Americans, I guess Canadians, Europeans, you're helping them get used to the city, get used to the area. Is that correct?
Back about a year ago, when President Putin signed Decree 702, which is a simplified form for immigrants from non-friendly countries, of which the United States is one of them, most European countries. It's a simplified way for people to immigrate to Russia. And I created a consulting service called Worry Free Russia. Now, I don't do immigration. I recommend that you come and visit Russia. I want people from the West, from America specifically, to come and visit Russia, just to experience it. And so I created a consulting service. You have a friendly face. I'm American. I speak your language. I understand your concerns. I understand where you're coming from and whatever fears or reservations you may have. But I know the lay of the land. I know the area, and I know what to expect from you to come, or when you come. So I created this consulting service to help answer your questions, kind of soothe your concerns and your fears, and basically make your visit to Russia, or if you are moving to Russia, your first introduction to Russia and to Moscow as worry-free as possible. So visit. If you want to visit Russia, go to worryfreerussia.com.
So Eddie, at the end of all of my interviews, I have something that is called an open microphone. It's basically a time for you to be able to share some thoughts that you haven't shared in this interview. Perhaps there was a question that I didn't ask. Maybe you wanted to say something nice, say something awful. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter. It's your open microphone. You can look directly into the camera. You can look at me. It's up to you. Go.
Thank you very much, Stan. I appreciate that. Folks, here's the thing. You see that beautiful skyline, Moscow City, behind you. Does that look like a third world country to you? That's another question. Stan's camera is facing Moscow State University, beautiful building right behind us, one of the premier university in Moscow. Everybody who wants to study at a university wants to go there. Look at these people that are walking by. Does this look like an unfriendly country? Does this look like something not normal? Something that I should fear? Something that you should fear? Absolutely not. I urge you to consider coming to visit Russia. Doesn't have to be today, could be tomorrow, could be next year. We're hoping that things are going to get better. Relations between governments will be better. But relations between people are perfectly normal. So don't hesitate. I want you to think about it. You've been propagandized. I was too. I'm an American. I lived there for 57 years before I moved. So I understand those fears and concerns. Just come visit Moscow. And if you'd like for someone like me or to greet you at the airport, escort you to your hotel, have your first introduction into Russia be smooth, then visit worryfreerussia.com. Let's talk.
Eddie, thank you very much for this brief conversation that we've had. If you've liked what you've seen, then, thumbs up or thumbs down. Leave your comments below. If anything, if you really want to come and you want to see what Russia's all about, then you can always go down to the description below, click on the link for Eddie's, what would it be, like a touring service?
It's a travel
concierge
consulting service.
There we go. So if you want to experience Russia through the eyes of an American, a Mexican American who's been living here for a little bit now, please do so. Otherwise, Stan, that's my name. Russian Opinion, that's the channel. Thank you very much and have a fantastic day.
Okay.